Hey, what's up? It's Emilio DiSpirito, and this is the Wealth Architect Podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you each and every single week. My team and I have hand-selected our guests to come on the program to talk about how to build wealth financially, mentally, physically, spiritually, right? There's so much that goes into building a lifestyle full of wealth, and we hope that this content really reaches you, not only in your brain, but in your heart, and that you could do something with this. So thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you, and we're going to have a great show. Hey, a special thank you to our sponsor, Annie Mac Home Mortgage, whose Cash to Keys product is disrupting the industry. Sick and tired of finding the perfect home, not having your offer selected? I got to tell you, it happens all the time. With Cash to Keys, Annie Mac gives sellers a cash guarantee for each of their buyers' offers. Stop bidding and hoping. Instead, bid with Annie Mac and bid with confidence. Don't just bid, but win. Annie Mac Mortgage. When you're buying real estate, you need somebody that understands the ins and outs of the legal ends. It's so important to have the right attorney working for you. You also need a bulldog. Let me tell you something. The first time I sat in a conference room with this lady, Melissa Delana of Delana Law, I immediately knew she owned the room. You need an attorney that owns the room, that can solve problems and make things happen when everybody else can't. You want to hire Delana Law in Massachusetts, Connecticut, or Rhode Island. Delana Law delivers every single time. They're going to help you out with all of your real estate needs. It's delanalaw.com. You got to check them out. All right, episode 16 of The Wealth Architect. I'm Emilio DiSpirito, and we've got a fantastic show lined up for you today. We've got some really great guests, some powerhouse people here. And the topic today that we're going to start with is the 1031 exchange. Okay, so 1031 exchange, it's probably the best tool in your artillery to go ahead and avoid taxes, kick the can down the road, and leverage some money to buy more properties with, increase your cash flow in whatever you're doing. But we're going to get into the specifics of how it all works. And we've got an expert here with us today, Joe Ackaway of RI 1031 Exchanges. Joe, welcome.
Thank you, Emilio. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. So, Joe, I mean, 1031 exchange is pretty involved, the process, and I really want to dive through that with our listeners today. You've been at this for over a decade, right?
Just about a decade now, yeah.
A decade, and you're able to work with buyers in all 50 states?
Yeah, it's federal regulations, so we're able to work throughout the U.S.
Okay, great. Buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
You're located here in Rhode Island, and this is how we met. And you handle roughly about 400 transactions a year, would you say?
Close to 300 a year.
300 a year.
The last couple of years.
Okay, that's fantastic. And you've been doing this, and actually your partner's your mom, Barbara.
Yeah, she's a former IRS agent, and
wow.
I learned about what a 1031 exchange is from her, and right about when I was graduating college, we decided to take a stab at specializing in this one thing, and that's all we've been doing since.
So and we're going to dive in to really understand more about the 1031 exchange. But I mean, you and your mom must be, and a lot of investors and builders and whoever's using the 1031 exchange, I know is very happy because the current presidential administration, the Trump administration, just approved 1031 exchange to continue, whereas I know the other administration was talking about potentially taking it away.
Yeah, it's been discussed as being on the chopping block, every election cycle. For a lot of important reasons, it has stayed in the tax code, and there are a lot of important things that help the economy in a bigger picture, and the liquidity in the commercial real estate market, things of that nature all benefit from 1031 exchanges sticking around.
So tell us what exactly a 1031 exchange is, a little bit of the background, what it is, and how it helps people to move some money around without paying taxes.
Sure. So first of all, that number 1031 refers to the section of the tax code that it falls under. And essentially a 1031 exchange is a process that allows investors to defer the taxes that they would normally owe on their sale, as long as they're reinvesting the sales proceeds into new investment real estate within certain time frames and following certain rules.
So we'll give you an example, right? So I've leveraged a 1031 exchange on multiple occasions, and I started. I'll tell you where I started, right? So I bought a little single family home in Rhode Island here, and I bought it for like 97,000. I sold it for I think 200K, and what happens is the delta, the difference, the profit, right? If I was to just, sell it and keep that money or put it somewhere else, I'd be paying capital gains taxes on it of, 15% federal, and then you pay your state taxes. So it'd be 21%. So let's just say if it was 100K, I'd be paying $21,000 to the government, right? But instead, I contacted you guys over at RI 1031 Exchange, and you and Barbara helped me to move that money into a 3-family. And I took that money and I bought a 3-family with it, which was 250K. And then I moved that money up. And then when that 3-family, I was able to increase my cash flow every single month and get paid more. And since then, I've just been building my portfolio up and up and up and up and up. That is the key to it all, where now I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars, which would have been tax money, right, that I built up through my portfolio. And yeah, I'm going to have to pay taxes one day when I sell this stuff, right? But I'm making the cash flow now, and I'm buying properties, whereas I probably couldn't have purchased those properties without having that significant amount of extra money to put down.
Exactly. And it is very impactful. In the real estate investing game, there's so many things you do to, keep your numbers working, making your properties cash flow. And a lot of people overlook the drastic tax impact because it's not on their mind. Not a lot of people wrap their heads around it. And then come time to sell a property, their CPA lets them know, oh, you're going to owe Uncle Sam, $50,000. And they might be intending to move the money into other real estate anyway. But if they're not aware of the 1031 exchange, they don't see that huge benefit. And that could be the difference between another unit or the money to spend on a new kitchen or all sorts of things. As you mentioned, you were expanding your portfolio through your exchanges. That's one of the common strategies. People that want to add more doors, it's great for that, which also ties into one of the important rules with exchanges is they want to see you reinvesting equal to or more than your sales price in the new property to get a full tax deferral, basically buying up in value to get the full deferral. And a lot of people have a misconception about that. Whereas if they sold property for $300,000, but they're only walking with $150,000 in cash, they think you just have to move that $150,000 into new property, but you do have to reach that sales price or greater to get the most of it.
Yeah. Okay. There's some other questions that I think that our listeners would probably have that I want to go over with you. So what happens if you say, hey, you know what? I'm making, say, 200K from this 1031 exchange. I'm making 200, but I don't want to move all of that 200 over to another property. And they say they take 100 out for themselves. How does that work?
So you can do that, and any cash you choose to take would be subject to tax, but you can be deferring tax on whatever you do put into new property. There's a couple of ways that you might arrive at what we call a partial exchange, and that would either be taking cash right up front on the sale side, or if you reinvest down in value, that would lead to a partial exchange where you pay some tax, but you defer usually a good amount.
Got it. Okay. Appreciate that. Let's talk about, I never knew that this existed until recently. Let's talk about a reverse 1031 exchange. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. A reverse exchange comes up when you need to close on the replacement property prior to your sale property going through. And the reason they're more complicated is because the IRS doesn't allow you to own both properties involved in the exchange at the same time. So the way to get around that rule through a process that's been blessed by IRS is, as intermediary, we create a third-party LLC that takes title to the replacement property, and you basically loan money to that entity that's just parking it until you make your sale, and then you can close on your sale within 180 days from closing on the purchase.
Wow.
So,
and satisfy that loan. And that loan could have been a personal loan, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Most conventional lenders have issues lending to that new LLC in those cases.
Okay.
They get complicated, but it can be a personal loan, it can be hard money, or any lender who is on board. But
Yeah. I mean, needless to say, I think the most beautiful thing about real estate is that you have to get creative, and, having the right professionals in your corner, especially somebody like Joe, who handles 1031 exchange, is really important, especially if you want to build your portfolio up. Because if you were to just plug the numbers in, compounding numbers year over year, and how much you can grow a portfolio, it's going to be drastically different if you decide not to leverage the 1031 exchange. I mean, think about it. Even if it's only 21,000 in savings per year over 10 years, it's 210,000.
and it's about what you're making it do for you.
Yeah.
Everything about your investing is making your money working for you. And if you're cutting off a little piece every time you go from one property to another, it really hampers your overall snowball that you're building.
Joe, what is something that most people don't know about 1031 exchanges?
There's a huge misconception out there that if you sold a duplex, you have to buy a duplex. So most people don't understand how generously broad the idea of like-kind property is, where in reality, any investment real estate qualifies in a 1031 exchange for other investment real estate. So that can be as drastically different as selling a single family and buying commercial property, or selling a 4-family and buying raw land. Anything of that nature, as long as it's held for investment or business use, qualifies it.
But you couldn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can't go sell a property, say a rental property, purchase land to build new construction and sell that new construction. You have to build a rental property or have the intent of building a rental property. Is that correct?
Yeah, it has to be your intent to hold for investment. And what that means in reality is that it's not something that you're just going to resell. Flippers and developers fall into this area where they typically don't qualify for 1031s because they are acquiring property with the intent only to resell it.
Yeah.
And the properties in those cases are actually treated as inventory, not a capital gain asset. Correct. If you are developing property or flipping property, on a case-by-case basis, they can certainly qualify for 1031s. If you're renting them out, you get a safe harbor from IRS if you hold it as a rental for 2 years. So that could never be challenged after that point, that when you acquired it, it was your intent to hold for investment.
Wow, that's great. So, that may or may not make sense for, different investors in their initiatives. But I'm always surprised at how many home flippers or even builders don't realize that when they make the sale, they can't do a 1031 exchange, and that they're getting hit with short-term capital gains, which means they're paying their level of income tax. So if they're being taxed at, say, 30%, 37%, wherever it is in the federal, and wherever it lays on the state for your income, that amount, because it's inventory, it's like having a day job, right? Like, that's your income, and you are taxed at income levels. But if you hold the property, and this isn't 1031 exchange, but if you hold the property for a year, then you're taxed long-term capital gains, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which would be the 15% or 20% federally based on income.
Got it. So opportunity zones, we're not going to dive too deep into that because that's a whole other area of specialization, right? But opportunity zones have been enacted again or reenacted again by the current presidential administration. And I don't know a ton about this area in real estate. I'm constantly learning more and more. If I do understand correctly, if you use a 1031 exchange in an opportunity zone, can you share any details about that?
To my knowledge, it's a bit more of an alternative to an exchange.
Yeah.
Because if you're putting money into opportunity zones and leaving it there for long enough, you don't get taxed on the way out of them, I believe.
Is it up to 2 million? I saw
it's a bit outside of my area. Okay. I don't want to speak to something I'm not certain about.
Mine too.
Yeah.
But that is something that I think you should definitely look into if you're using a 1031 exchange and buying in an opportunity zone. I believe I read somewhere where it's up to $2 million that's tax free, but you got to hold it long term. What is that long term? Do we know? Is it 2 years?
I think it's more like 5 to 10 or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay. All right. So that's something, if you're listening to this, you're going to want to look into and talk with somebody who specializes in opportunity zones because there's significant tax savings there.
Yeah.
Huge, absolutely huge on your way out.
And great for those areas.
Yeah, and it's really good for those areas. Joe, tell me a story about I want to talk good and bad, right? So tell me your favorite story of, say, it's something that sticks out where somebody really crushed it with a 1031 exchange.
Well, one of the best ways to use a 1031 strategically is people that are hands-on landlords that are getting sick of that side of things, and by the time their portfolio has several multifamilies that they're self-managing, they might be tired of taking the calls and doing all of those things that it entails.
Yep.
And they want to get into more passive investments. So we had a client a few years ago who had several multifamilies in one socket and was managing them all, was just tired of it, but had built a big nest egg through these things and ended up reinvesting into triple net leased commercial properties.
Wow. Okay.
So, and this was totally new to them. They were not, they were very open to this and willing to jump into this new category of investing for them. And they went from the completely active, hands-on, many, many units to having 2 commercial tenants. They were Dollar Generals out of state that you get your rent checks and the tenant takes care of all the maintenance and upkeep and insurance and things of that nature. Yeah. So it's going from a very hands-on lifestyle to a much more hands-off, passive way of investing.
That's fantastic. And that's good to note too, that you can take residential and you can sell that and you can move it into the commercial with the triple net lease, which is, by the way, I think the best kind of passive income. I mean, you buy plazas where like Lowe's or Home Depot go into, and they're signing long-term agreements.
And the money's in the lease.
Yeah.
Usually 30-year leases that
right.
are backed by the corporation. So, it's not hinging on that location doing well if the lease is right.
Correct. That's right. And you've seen places where, the business has failed and they've moved out, but the corporation continues to pay the lease for this empty building.
Right.
And it's just you're left in such a great spot because they're supposed to maintain the building too with triple net. It's wild. So if you want to leverage 1031 exchange for, I think, the overall best, like that's probably like pinnacle. That's probably like there.
Yeah, it's a great way to work it into the long-term planning to not only be deferring the taxes, because as we're talking here, it's a deferral. So the way that works is the tax obligation basically rolls into the new property through what's called a carryover basis. So your tax basis in the property that you're selling in an exchange becomes the basis of the new property you buy, which is why if you were to sell it, the next day, you'd be on the hook for all the gain that we're talking about. That's why it's kicking the can down the road. If people are working the exchanges into their long-term estate planning and plan to pass their properties on to heirs, the heirs get a step up in basis upon inheritance, which is about as big a benefit as they could get.
Huge.
Because, you might have built your portfolio from that one single family to this $5 million portfolio of triple net lease properties.
Yeah.
And your kids could inherit that, sell it the next day with no capital gain.
Wow. So let's unpack that for our listeners. Let's say you kick the can down the road and you have, say, 5 million in, taxable equity.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it might be worth 5 million. Your basis might be 400,000, because it's been 1031'd into over and over and depreciated all the way.
So, all right. So and I'm super visual, Joe. Like I would have to literally
chart
see
it
this
out
to follow it. But basically the long story short, for the step up in basis, say you handed your family or heirs a property and that property is worth 5 million. And, there was, say, $1 million in taxable income in that property. When they get it, it now starts at 5 million. It starts from the day that they get it. So if they sell it on that day that they inherit it, the step up in basis allows them to sell it at the current fair market value without any capital gains taxes. Is that correct?
Yeah, their basis would become fair market value upon death. We call that swap till you drop in our industry.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Swap till you drop. And I mean, so are you seeing like family offices do this?
Not so much personally, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're taking advantage of it.
I would imagine. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a great way to build wealth and really take care of your heirs. There's so many different things that you can do to protect yourself and your loved ones from paying too much tax. And I think it's okay to pay our fair share of tax, right? But I mean, we are taxed so hard, and if there's ways to be able to grow your portfolio, grow your business, and help your family out and leave a legacy, like that's what we're all about. That's building wealth, not short term but long term wealth that can
Right.
last for generations.
And a lot of people that aren't as informed look at the 1031 and say, "Oh, that's a tax loophole,"
Yeah.
or that's just some scheme that the rich do. But it couldn't be farther from the truth. 1031s have been in the tax code since 1921. It's looked at as an unfair tax to when you're going from one investment into another, like just because you're going from this house to that house.
Yeah.
It's not so fair to just pay the tax every time you're changing properties. And it promotes domestic reinvestment. It's there for a reason. And as you're saying, these tools are out there. To understand them and take advantage of them is what really gets you building things to the next level.
That's right. And I think it's so sad how the news kind of portrays 1031 exchange and how some politicians portray it. And either they're uneducated or they just think that we're stupid. And that is not the case. And that's part of also the reason why I have this podcast, is because I want to bring people like you on and really educate the public in this. There's a lot of people, blue collar, that have come up and have made a wonderful nest egg and have actually become wealthy while keeping their blue collar jobs.
Right.
That is the American dream. And this is one of the tools that we get to use. And if this goes away, then, that's one less opportunity for Americans to have.
And a lot of my clients are the mom and pop who, bought one or two investment properties throughout their life, while they're working hard. And it's not just the rich guy who owns 5 skyscrapers,
Yeah.
They take advantage of it too, for sure, but it helps everyone at every level.
It's getting tougher and tougher in some states like California, New York, Rhode Island. Typically and this is not political, but typically the blue states, they're really going after, the small mom and pops type of owners, making it nearly impossible for these people to achieve that American dream, and they have so many different gut punches. The taxes are high, the cost is high. There's just different restrictions for this and that. And they just throw so many curveballs at owners, where a lot of owners, private owners, are saying, hey, you know what? I'm all set with this. I'm walking away. So I've actually seen in places like Rhode Island, I can speak to this, where people are selling their properties here in Rhode Island, and we hate to see them go, and they're taking the 1031 exchange and they're buying in places like Mississippi, okay, or places like Alabama, or places that are a lot easier to navigate, where their money is going to go so much further. Have you had any experience with anything like that?
Absolutely. And one of the general strategies with the exchange is for things like relocation, whether it's, for your hunches on investment, directions in the future, or if you're forced to move for a job or something, or for family reasons, and, you've built your portfolio around here, you want to get into another state without taking that tax hit, you can make the exchange help you get there. And yes, we are seeing, as a Rhode Island based qualified intermediary, our network is really deeply rooted here. So the majority of our sales are Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Mass. And we're seeing more and more sellers around here reinvesting, like you're saying, into the friendlier climates politically or taxation wise. So we see a lot going into Florida, Tennessee, New Hampshire. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about when you are selling a property using a 1031 exchange, buying a new property, and you want to renovate that property with 1031 exchange monies. It sounds like it could get a little complex. Can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So that's one of the other more complex types of exchanges, and that's what we call either a construction or improvement exchange. Similar to the reverse exchange, It's complicated for its own reason. This one being that you can't put 1031 money into property you already own.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't simply, in the exchange, close on the new property, have it in your name, and then keep adding funds to it. So instead, just like with the reverse, we need to have a new company created that takes title during the exchange while the improvements are carried out. You would acquire it off of that, LLC at the improved value. And it typically makes the most sense when you're selling, say, for $600,000, buying down in value for $450,000. But you want to reach that target reinvestment amount for the full deferral, and you're willing to carry out those improvements. They do have to be carried out in the 180-day exchange window. And I should back up a little bit and just go through those timeframes, because those are a crucial element. You have 45 days from the date of the closing on your sale to identify replacement property, and you have to be closing on replacement property within 180 days of the sale.
And that can make it extremely difficult. Those are pretty tight time frames, especially in a marketplace where there's low inventory.
Definitely.
And high demand, right? So if there's high demand and properties are flying off the shelf, within a week, 2 weeks, even 2 months, it makes it pretty difficult.
It definitely puts pressure on. And my best advice for anyone entering an exchange is that if you don't have a deal, totally planned out on the buy side, just have as good of an idea of what you're looking for as possible. Pair yourself with a great realtor like Emilio and be ready to put aggressive offers out, because if the exchange you're dealing with has a 6-figure tax obligation that's at stake, it's worth bidding a little more to lock in that new property if it makes your exchange, go through with more comfort.
Oh, that's absolutely right. I mean, have you ever seen it? I'm sure you have, where people, they can't identify a property. So then they're just hit with the taxes. How often does that happen, like percentage wise?
I would say a bit more in the last few years. So since about 2021, when the market, I would say, became an insane seller's market and much tougher on the buy side for our clients, for anyone, we've seen that tick up to maybe 10 to 15%. Whereas earlier on in our time around 2015 to 2020, it was even lower than that. Most of our exchanges were successful exchanges. They can either fail if you don't find anything at day 45 and then you don't end up IDing, it would fail at that point. Or if you can't close by day 180, which is much more rare, because as long as you properly identify something by day 45, that 6-month window to close is rarely an issue.
So if somebody is on day 45 and they can't find anything to purchase, can they put that money into like a fund, like a REIT, like a real estate investment trust?
That's a great question. Traditional REITs don't typically qualify because that's more of an investment in a security. But there's this one reinvestment vehicle that does qualify, that behaves very similarly to a REIT, and that's called a Delaware Statutory Trust. DSTs they go by. And similar to a REIT, you're getting a passive fractional interest of a much larger real estate project. So you might be a 0.874% owner of this $150 million complex, whether it's commercial or residential. They come in all forms. They're great for someone in that situation where you want to be able to get the money into something to make your exchange work. And if you were looking for traditional real estate that didn't turn out, it's a great alternative. Also, similarly, the people who just want that totally passive income, DSTs are great for them. You don't have control of when the trust sells off the overall project. So it's not for everyone. They typically turn over from 3 to 8 years. They would turn over, and then you're faced with either cashing out at that time or getting into another DST or 1031 into any other normal traditional real estate.
Wow. So it's just good to know that there's options. If you're on day 45 and you don't have anything else, you can go to Delaware Statutory Trust. Is that?
Yep.
You could go to one of those. There's probably a website where you can find these things, and you're going to want to obviously vet that out. I personally have not gone through it, but as you're saying that, I think to our production team, we should write that down, because I want to interview somebody that has done those, because that's really some powerful stuff. That's great. You almost feel like that stuff's like a loophole, even though it's not. It's like,
it's funny because like they're so similar to REITs, yet REITs don't qualify. So
yeah,
somewhere
leave
along
it
the
to
way,
Delaware.
somewhere along the way, somebody, some Delaware person got that onto the side of complying with 1031, and they are very geared towards exchanges because they'll come at all sorts of different debt ratio levels.
Yeah.
So it can help you reach that target reinvestment amount if you get a very highly leveraged DST. Your $50,000 in cash might be buying you a $300,000 DST investment because there's debt baked right into it.
Yep.
So they can be very helpful to either round out an exchange or be a backup plan.
It's great to know.
And you can buy multiple properties in a 1031. Not everyone knows that either. So if you sold something for $800,000 and you're looking at, getting into 3 or 4 condos that are $250 each, you can do that as well.
Fantastic. Now, what happens, Joe, if you are on, let's say, all right, you've identified 3 properties, you're moving forward with one of the properties, you are 120 days of the 180 day in, and the property falls apart. The seller decides, hey, I'm not going to sell this. Are you able to now go back and purchase one of the other 2 properties that you have identified?
As long as they've been properly identified by day 45, you can always reinvest into those alternatives.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason I think that the IRS allows you to list up to 3 properties. I wish that the 45-day ID window didn't exist at all, because it doesn't really make sense to me why somebody's reinvesting within the 6 months.
I agree.
Why that there's an extra caveat in there, but that's not my call, and the rules are the rules.
just another hoop to jump through, maybe to discourage. Maybe that came in later on, because I think this happened in 23. And there, back in the day, you used to be able to do a 1031 exchange for even equipment.
Yeah.
Cars.
The tax code changed, I believe, in 2019, 17 or 19. And that's when it was restricted to just real estate. And previously, it could be used for equipment. It could be used for collectible automobiles, collectible artwork. And that's where the term like kind actually mattered more. And now it just confuses people when it comes to real estate and makes them think that duplex for duplex thing. But it mattered a lot more with things like equipment, where it had to be this type of bulldozer for that type of bulldozer.
Wow, it's good stuff. And, so 1031 exchange can be pretty complex, and you want to make sure that you are working with, a group, wherever you are, a group of professionals, from the real estate agent to real estate advisor, right, to the 1031 exchange intermediary, to the attorneys, to everybody involved, the lenders. They have to be well-versed in this. And you can reach out to Joe anytime. You can go ahead and connect with him at, I think it's ri1031exchange.com.
That's right.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, great. ri1031exchange.com. You can go ahead and contact him through there and ask any questions. He can help you in all 50 states. Good stuff, Joe. Thanks so much for jumping on with us.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back here with Kim Marion, Global Advisor with Engel & Volkers and Realm Global. Stay tuned. Have you ever heard of upfront underwriting? Well, I haven't until I started working with Movement Mortgage. Movement Mortgage is one of the top loan originators around the country. Specifically, I want to give a thank you to Matt Bates. And if you're lucky enough to live in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, or New Hampshire, I strongly suggest you contact Matt Bates at rimortgageguy.com. Again, rimortgageguy.com, and he's going to help you to find that dream home. He does upfront underwriting, which means they fully approve you for a mortgage before you even place offers, increasing your chances of winning that dream home. rimortgageguy.com. All right, episode number 16 of The Wealth Architect. I'm Emilio DiSpirito, and we've got a great guest with us today. We have Kim Marion of Engel & Volkers. She's a global advisor in the top 1% of selling advisors all across the globe, and also a member of Realm Global. We're going to get into her affiliations later on. But Kim, it's great to have you here.
Hey, Amelia, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So Kim, there's a lot of real estate agents. They start in the business and they want to get to the caliber of luxury, right? So I'm going to pick your brain on that, because luxury real estate versus everyday real estate, which we love too, right, is completely different, right? Different expectations of consumers, different expectations out of brokerages and all of that. So we're going to pick your brain about that. But you kind of like, you started real estate and your first transaction was 7 figures, right?
It was, which was amazing and unexpected. I had the opportunity to step into, as a new agent, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 months in the business, I had the opportunity to step into a spot where another agent wasn't quite fitting in. And my broker said, I think you're going to match with this person. You're going to have a great rapport. And that did happen. And the house hadn't sold in months and months and months. For some reason, the energy was good, and I was able to sell that property. My first sale was over $1 million, which was tremendous. I realized how blessed I was. That's a space that I knew I wanted to stay in, which involved a lot of learning on my part to understand the needs of a client that has expectations that are just a higher standard. And that was the expectation of my brokerage, a luxury brokerage, but also there's still a learning curve. And now I feel like I've got it down because I've been, these are my people, the relationships I've built, and that's where your referrals come from. So you end up, if you start out well, it's a little easier, but once you get your feet into real estate and you start to work, you can build up your clientele just by learning and being white glove service. Give people more than they expect, and that is going to help you elevate.
You got to build that trust. And do you find in the luxury space, like I was at several other brokerages before I moved in my current brokerage, and I was getting stonewalled because of the brokerages that I was at. And I was thinking in my head, like, I'm fully capable of servicing these sellers. Like, why are they not using me? Do you find that there's kind of a certain entry, like a certain place you have to be to get those access to those listings and those buyers?
I think luxury sellers, luxury buyers, they're people that travel, they're going around the world, they have experiences that are high level, they have a different set of expectations, and when they pick a brokerage, they want an advisor that has a global network. If Realm Global, for me, that has been a plus.
Realm Global.
That has been
Shout
a
out.
wonderful, yeah, that's a good shout out. That has been a nice plus for me because not only do I have a global brokerage that is known for boutique luxury experiences, then I have the credibility of that global network, that it's a members only invite network.
That's right.
And I'm part of that. So when I approach a listing appointment, I understand the client because that's my background. My brokerage can support their expectations. If they're people that travel, they know Engel and Volkers.
That's right.
They know it's 32 countries, it's a global brand. And so that is a big help to me. Sometimes I'm explaining what Realm means. When the client understands what Realm, that affiliation that I bring, how it can elevate their listing, they're very excited about it.
That's right. And how long have you been involved with Realm?
This is year 3.
Wow,
Yeah,
year three.
in
Okay.
Realm, yeah.
And I look at Realm as like the country club of memberships for real estate advisors. I mean, we're networking with some of the best advisors in Sotheby's, in Compass.
Engel and Volkers, and the smaller boutique brands too that are all over the country.
150 different brokerages, and to have this collection of over 600 professionals to share insights and to be truly collaborative and focused on the end user, on the consumer. I think that's what really being a realtor and real estate advisor is all about. So it's fantastic. Can we talk a little bit about how you've leveraged your network and affiliations to service your clients?
Yes. So it was like a perfect, I wanted to interrupt, but I was behaving.
Were you thinking what I was about to ask?
I was thinking, I want to tell you about the opportunity that having the global network and then the assistance of this other members only network. When I have a listing that is spectacular, I can send it out even off market to so many agents that will have buyers. I mean, just within Engel and Volkers, that alone is a huge network. But the trust that I have with when I refer someone, it's never just, I found so-and-so online. They have a good bio. I'm going to send my, ultra luxury client over.
That's
It's
right.
not like
Yeah.
that. There's a relationship with my client that I am so protective of. So I will, if I don't know the person personally, I'll make sure that I have multiple calls with them, that I have referrals from their clients that I speak with. If they aren't a licensed partner, I'll speak with a licensed partner. When I hand someone over, I want to make sure that I'm going to get a phone call back that says, Emilio was amazing. What I expected from you, I got from him, or whomever I sent to.
It's not always easy to do.
It's not easy to do because when you have set a standard for yourself, mine is super high.
Yeah.
I expect someone to take a call late at night. I expect someone to go and do all the inconvenient things for the client that need to be done that they really don't want to do themselves, that I will do for them.
And you can't just find that if you're a typical agent without Realm Global or without, Sotheby's or Engel and Volkers or like a brokerage that has that reach globally. It's really hard to look on Zillow or some website in the UK to find somebody that mimics our standards.
I just sent someone to the UK. I sent them to
John Eric?
I did send them to John Eric.
Shout out to John Eric with
most
Compass.
credible people. Shout out to that relationship that I
that's
have
right,
that I
that's
could
right.
say and that you have, that I can say, I'm sending you to someone who is literally the best person.
It's fantastic.
And, or, wherever it is, and I feel really good about it. I have someone everywhere that my clients are going. There's Portugal, there's Paris, UK. I can think of names of people that I know, that I've met personally, that I trust. And that's amazing. I don't think a smaller brokerage that isn't networked has that to offer.
Let's talk. I've got a couple of things I want to talk with you about. Number one, I want to talk about how important the events that we go to where we're shaking hands and meeting people. Why is that important to you, and why is that important to your clients?
Right. So that's everything. That's where all the relationships start.
That's right.
So when I joined Engel and Volkers, I went to that first networking EVX, and I met so many people. And I took it rather casually. I thought, they were nice to know. And then I started getting emails. So great to meet you. Hey, I have a question about Rhode Island. I have a question about, do you work in Massachusetts? Yes, I do. I can help you. What about, are you in Westport? Is all these, I can't believe how many people reached out to me. I hadn't had that happen in my last brokerage. So now, I have elevated those. We have groups. We're talking once a week. And I know that if I have to send a client somewhere, these are people that are now friends of mine. They're not just referral partners. They really have become friends that I can trust, that work in all spaces. I know we're talking about luxury right now, but if I have clients across the board. So if I have a client going to, North Carolina or going to Florida, I have people I can send them to that are micro-targeted to where they want to be, that are going to be the number one person in that area.
Yeah, and whether it's
the networks are huge
or,
for my clients.
Yeah.
Because through me, it ends up being a tremendous value for them.
Like you specialize in equestrian estates, and you've got people that do vineyards or ski areas or whatever it is. Golf
As you're saying that, I'm
communities.
thinking of people.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's the amazing thing. And what I love about Realm is that Engel and Volkers, luxury brokerage in 32 countries, 1,100 locations, but there's a lot of areas where we don't have an Engel and Volkers.
Right.
And or there might even be an area where there's an E&V, but we get along better with a Realm Global person. We're like, hey, you know what? They hold the same standards. We're going to send it to them. So
sometimes it's about the client.
It's all, that's right.
So I may have a great person in my brokerage that is just not the right match for the client for whatever reason. And I've got someone else that I know, whether it's a different brokerage or my own, that I can send them to.
Huge.
I want it to be a perfect fit.
Kim, you recently were on Hill and Harbor Design, Paul.
Luxury living, yes.
Yes. And shout out to Paul. Is it Vespia?
Yes, Paul Vespia, Hill and Harbor
Good.
Design,
Great guy, very talented. And I know you've done some business with Paul in the past with your clients.
I have.
And Paul's a very talented builder, okay? And he's looking to expand throughout the Northeast. And he just had this wonderful program. And you were on a panel, and I saw the videos from it, and I keep watching them as they come out. And you did an amazing job with some other amazing local advisors there with different brokerages. But you were talking about how long it takes to build trust with clients. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the questions that they asked on the panel was, what do you want from the people you work with, the people you refer to for builders, for instance, like Paul? What do you expect from our service, from the service providers? And what I was thinking about was, what I expect from the service providers is that you present the highest level service that you can, because you are me. When I give anyone the name of, whether it's a plumber, a builder, an architect, an interior designer, when I give that person's name to my trusted client, I may have been working with them for 5 years. And it may have taken 3 of those years to find them a property or sell their property or whatever the situation. When I send a service provider there, they represent me. So I want that trust to to go right from me into the referral and to come back the same way another agent would represent. But Hill and Harbor, for instance, they did that. And when I've used them, they have presented beautifully. And I get
So
back
key.
great reviews. Yeah.
It's so key to building an empire, and that's what you've been able to do. And so, those auxiliary partnerships and the support that we can give our clients, whether it's business or personal context, is so important.
Yeah.
And I see you doing that so well, Kim. Do you have like a referral list of services that you hand every client?
I don't hand it out. What I do have a spreadsheet, and it is giant.
Yep.
And I check every now and then to see, okay, how is this going? Have I talked to, so-and-so in a while? Have I referred to them? Are my clients happy? I always call my client after I refer someone, even if
Absolutely.
it's a little handyman
Smart.
job. I call and say, first of all, I want to know, but also I want to make sure it was a good experience. So I don't just send the spreadsheet out arbitrarily because things could change. Businesses close, they sell, they hire new people, and sometimes quality could change. I want to make sure I have control of the list. They call me, I can give them anything they need, and that way I know I always am going to give them the best referral. Sometimes there's a bump, and then, you work it out, you do
had it
whatever you
too.
need to make sure. I mean, those things happen, but almost 100% of the time, the referrals, I talk to them beforehand. You represent me when you go in.
Yeah.
This is a client I've worked with for 10 minutes or 10 years, it doesn't matter. You need to be the best of the best.
And you have to have those tough conversations with people to let them know your standards, because if you don't, it's your fault.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And they might just treat it. And the other way I look at this too is that when somebody like you is having conversation, let's pretend like I'm a HVAC guy.
Yeah.
And I meet Kim Marion, and she's bringing me into a $5 million property, referring me to her clients. I'm looking at her as, okay, wow, she obviously built this business, built this trust, built this brand. I'm actually elevating myself
That's
because
100%
of
right.
that. And I'm watching the interactions, and I'm watching how you handle yourself. And that's why being surrounded with people that are on the same page is so important.
And that's how you grow. That's how you grow your business. That's how you learn to be better. They say if you surround yourself with people that are top achievers, you yourself have a better odds of being a top achiever.
And, and so like I was recently talking with somebody, and I was like telling him how disappointed I was with something, right? And he's like, do you think your standards are too high? And I said, my
No.
standards are too high? I'm like, shouldn't we be striving for the highest standards of
Yes.
everything we do?
Yes.
And
that's
there's-
what's expected.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as perfection, but I feel like we've gotten used to as a culture, like kind of like, whatever kind of standards, especially in the real estate market.
Right.
And in times where the market has been really tough, okay, for the past few years, inventory, interest rates, lawsuits, this, that, whatever else, the people that have continuously brought business to the table and succeeded are people with high standards.
Right.
So, yeah, job well done, Kim.
Thank you so much. I
I'm so
appreciate it.
glad to be able to highlight you and your success. Any last words at all that you want to share?
If you are thinking of buying or selling, expect the best, demand the best, and consider what you're getting for your value. If an agent is going to offer you, a 2% listing agreement, that might be totally fine for you, but then expect a 2%, service. They're going to maybe put a lock box on the house or something. Expect the best, and don't shy away from paying for something when it's going to support one of the biggest financial transactions you can have. This is something I say all the time. If you're going to spend $1 million, $3 million, $5 million, $500,000, if you're going to spend your money or you're going to hope to sell your property, it's a lot of money. And so 1 or 2% in the quality of the person that you work with is worth spending.
It's huge. And it's the old adage, and well said. It's the old adage of, I'm not going to say you get what you pay for, you do, but it's also,
true.
it's also if the person negotiating your multi-million-dollar home can't negotiate their own compensation,
That's a bad sign.
How hard are they going to work at making sure you get the highest overall net? And are they even experienced to do that? When you're selling the properties that we're selling, you need to be well versed there.
I have
It's
had
huge.
clients say, can you do it cheaper? The answer is no.
No.
Because there's $200 million worth of sales behind me and experiences that have built what I'm offering. and somebody who has 2 or 3 sales or 20 sales can come in and botch it for you in 2 minutes.
That's right.
And so that little bit of money and the difference is well worth it.
Well, it's not only that too. It's also the people that you've surrounded yourself, the brokerage which you surrounded
right.
yourself. So it's not only you.
Yeah, I have a whole
as the
team I
advisor
work
going
with.
in. It's a full team, and
That's exactly right.
And that's how I've been looking at it too the past 4.5 years with our affiliations, and I'm just so excited to be a part of all of this. Engel and Volker's, Realm Global, and and just so much more. Thank you so much,
Thank
Kim.
you so much. I
Nice
appreciate
job.
it.
You're very welcome. Good stuff. We hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you follow Kim on social media. We're going to go ahead and tag her all over the place, so make sure you give her a follow. Great stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Take care.